Welcome back to Retro Wednesday at the Tidarium Hangar. This is Mike, and Merry Christmas to everybody. Today I want to talk to you about Wishbooks from the 80s. We're going to be covering the 1980 to 1985 Wishbook. These catalogs were a lot of fun for us back in the day and was pretty much all we had to look at when we were kids in the 80s. This print media is almost dead these days with the internet and all of that, but we didn't have the internet, we didn't have cell phones, and we weren't able to look at minute-by-minute updates on toy lines. This is pretty much all we had to look at the same few pages of toys for months and months going into Christmas. Today we're going to relive some of those pages together from 1980 to 1985. Coming up. So starting out with a bonus 1979. Yeah, I've only got one picture from 1979, but I'm going to talk about a few things on this. Of course, Star Wars is big, and I believe this is Canada, and there's the Palatoy Death Star up there. I didn't know that went to Canada, but pretty cool that there's so much Star Wars going on in 79, and they're just fleshing out the first movie and getting all that stuff done there. Now, I am kind of curious about a few things on this. Now, first off, you're going to see at the bottom they have these role-play items. Those are the real small, flimsy kind of role-play items, really cheaply made. I bet you those are really hard to come by these days. And then they have the carrying case, Land of the Jawas, some plush animals. But one of the things right in the center of the left page that you're going to notice is the fact that they don't sell individual figures. You have to buy the group of figures, and you don't get to pick which figure you get. So pretty much if you ordered through the Wishbook, for 30 bucks, you got all of those figures on the left, and then the next picture, 22 bucks, you got the new ones that were coming out. So it's one of those things. You couldn't pick the figures you wanted. It's either all or nothing. Now, moving over to the right side of the page, on the top we got some Buck Rogers. Below that we got Microdots. And then we've got a Mork from Ork with his egg ship, and that's pretty cool. So there's a lot of fun stuff. Let's get into 1980. 1980 was, of course, a very fun year. There's a lot of great stuff to talk about. Looking at the 1980 catalogs, starting with, of course, Star Wars. Now, here we are with Star Wars. Now, this is a bit of a fuzzy picture. I've got a little bit better picture quality, but it's not a good angle. So, anyhow, still looking at this, you can see all of the stuff that's going for the Empire Strikes Back. 1980 was a big year because of Empire Strikes Back, adding in new characters, new vehicles, and all of that fun stuff. Here's a better picture of the same catalog, but it's not spread out as well. So we do get to see the cardboard Bespin playset up there, and then we get to see below that, we got the Darth Vader carrying case, and then we've got a remote control R2-D2, and then on the right you get to see the Falcon, the Snowspeeder, and some more figures assortment for number 16 there, and then some plush figures. So pretty cool Star Wars stuff going on. 1980 was a big year, and Star Wars really dominated from 1980 to 1983. I'm going to try to look at a lot more stuff than just the big major ones. Look at the side here. We see some Snoopy stuff going on in there. Whenever I think of Snoopy, though, I think of the Snoopy snow cone maker, because I had a Snoopy snow cone maker, and we use that a lot. So Snoopy stuff is kind of fun. It was big back in the day, and it's somewhat making a comeback. Also want to point out some stuff. There's some Pink Panther stuff in here. Now, these aren't actually toys. These are like stickers and stuff like that. But 1980, I think about 1980, Pink Panther was pretty big back then, too. Now, I do want to mention something about this Barbie Dream House. Now, looking through all these pictures and all these catalogs, I remember my neighbor had this, and I didn't realize how expensive it was. This thing in the catalog was $97.99. Now, I do want to say the catalog stuff from Sears Catalog or JCPenney's Awards and all them, those were more expensive than maybe if you were to pick this up at Walmart. I don't know if Walmart carried this or not, but the thing is that I remember seeing this in hand. It is pretty big, but for $10 more in 1985, they come out with the USS Flag. I think there's a lot more to the flag than what was to this, although this is still pretty impressive. So let's get into 1981, and like I say, Star Wars dominates. We're not going to spend the whole video just talking about Star Wars, but they started adding more stuff to it. We see an AT-AT down there, a Slave One ship at the bottom there, and then we've got this Imperial attack base, and then the turret and probe bots, and then they added in the Darth Vader TIE Fighter. So a lot of fun stuff. Dagobah playset up there. That can't be a Dagobah playset in 81. Yep, it's Dagobah playset in 81. And then they have a few other stuff going on with the Star Wars adding to it. It was big, fun, and exciting back then. Now, looking at some stuff that's not Star Wars, not the bigger ones, and we've got Mego and their superheroes. They really weren't superpowers at the time. And this was before Kenner's 1984 superpowers. Now, you look at this, the Mego made, I think those were the 8-inch ones. They also made some 3.75-inch ones. And they came with vehicles here. They actually sold individually the 8-inch. But the smaller ones that came with a vehicle, you got the 2 figures in a vehicle. So you didn't really get to pick. But I think as a kid, you kind of wanted those anyway. Looking next to that, you've got the chips. So that's a whole lot of fun. California Highway Patrol. Below that, we have some Dukes of Hazzard. And there's a lot of other stuff going on down here. Kind of fun to look back on this. And then here's a lot of other smaller toy lines. So this is a smaller scale, kind of like Army Men, kind of smaller scale. And the weird, funny thing is the right page, there's a playset there. I think I have that playset. I just didn't know what it went to. So now I see. It didn't really make sense because it didn't accommodate 3.75-inch figures so well. And now I see what it goes to. So 1981, now I don't really know what's going on at the top here. It looks like some sort of maybe a layout, a board game or something. Maybe it's I don't know. But it's for Star Wars. I've never seen it before. It's the Interplanetary Star Fortress. So maybe it's like a generic fortress that was made up and people just put Star Wars figures on it to sell it. Who knows? On the right of that, they have the Monster Play Case. So monsters were big back then. So this was like the Dracula and the Frankenstein and those kinds of things, I believe. So looking at that, those monsters were a lot of fun back in the day. And then down in the center, Clash of the Titans. Now, I think this is pretty much the entire toy line right here. So you've got the Pegasus and you've got the Kraken. And I can't believe the Kraken was like $15 back then. So that's pretty cool to find all this information out in these old catalogs. And of course, all the figures. So down below that, you see that we've got the Lone Ranger, Tonto, and Butch. So fun stuff. The horses and the figures and all that. I mean, these toy lines were all sort of fun back in the day. But I don't think they were wildly popular, which makes them kind of hard to find these days. And we appreciate them more today than we probably did back then. More Dukes of Hazzard too. Real quick, I want to point out that these 1981 handheld electronic games, I'll just put it out there. Maybe people had fun playing these. I never did. I tried to play some of these, and I never enjoyed them myself as a kid. And I gotta say, they were kind of lame because it was limited by technology at the time. Now, I have to say, if you went through this, you can appreciate modern technology so much more. I don't think kids truly appreciate how good they have it with modern technology. Here we go with some fun stuff here. Now we got the Atari 2600 branded for Sears, and then we have the ColecoVision branded for Sears also. So this was confusing to me when I started trying to collect vintage video games in the early days. It's like, this is an Atari. Why does it not say Atari on it? But anyhow, this is why they got it branded for their catalog. And yes, more and more Star Wars. Now, these are different catalogs from different places, but this, of course, is the Sears one. And kind of the same stuff we saw in the other catalog, but at the top, there's a Hoth playset kind of deal going on right there. So, Rebel Command Center. So, pretty cool stuff. Sears exclusive. That's probably going to be pretty hard to find. All right, so let's get into 1982. So, we've got Dukes of Hazzard on the left, taking a whole page. Whole page Dukes of Hazzard. All different sizes and scales, all that kind of stuff. So, a lot of fun right there. Now, going over to the right, now you can't see it very well, but at the very top of that, you can see that's the map, the Well of Souls playset. Not the map, but the Well of Souls. So, that's kind of fun right there. The Indiana Jones stuff at the top. Below that, of course, we've got Zorro, and we've got the Lone Ranger. Then you start to see a little bit of this breakup. We get some Tron stuff. You got a Light Cycle, and you got some Tron figures, and then more of the monster stuff. So a lot of fun stuff right there. Do want to point out some Sesame Street. Now, Sesame Street was big back in the day, back in 1982, and these hand puppets, I remember having some of these, but I also remember thinking, yeah, I feel like these are fun, but it doesn't feel right because they don't look exactly like what you saw on Sesame Street, and they weren't as big and all that kind of stuff. So it was a little bit of disappointment to me, and so now I can kind of see why people would want a life-size Cookie Monster if they're really into this kind of stuff, but, you know, the HasLab thing. 1982 brought in some G.I. Joe, 1982 Joe. So, pretty awesome. Now, I want to point out something that I just didn't pay attention until I started working on this. And that playset, that Sears cardboard playset, which was the exclusive Cobra Command headquarters, made of pretty much all cardboard and really hard to find today. It was only $10.99 in this book. So, that's impressive. to me, that's a really good price point for 3 figures and a giant cardboard playset. So, yeah, that was a good price. Now, of course, we got Tank over there. We've got the Vamp. And we got a few other things going on. So, lots of good stuff. But you do see right here, you have to get one of these 3 selections of G.I. Joe figures that are right in the middle of the page. You have to get 4, 5, or 6 that are numbered. And instead of going, well, I want this figure and that figure, you have to either get these 3 or get those 3. And that's one thing I didn't like about catalogs back in the day, but you really didn't have much of a choice. 1982 brought in a lot more stuff, and seeing this at the very bottom, Masters of the Universe. Of course, we got the Castle Grayskull, which was $25.49. Now, you see Castle Grayskull in the Origins line today on your shelves at Target for $75, or actually saying $79.99. So that's triple the price since 1980. Also, He-Man and his Battle Cat and a bunch of other figures in there. But still, lots of fun. 1982 was such a fun year. Looking over on the right, they're adding in some Star Wars, and these are the micro collection. And this is something that I remember getting some of these. Some people love them, some people hate them, but they're interesting. They could build an entire world because they're so small. And speaking of Star Wars, of course, there's now 2 full pages of Star Wars. Star Wars is dominating and taking over. 1982. Of course, this is gearing up for the 3rd movie in the next year. See, this is all still based off of a movie that's 2 years old. So, thinking about that, like a 2-year-old movie franchise is dominating this catalog. But then there's another one coming in 1983. Here are some video games of 1982 and some of those mini arcade cabinets. A lot of fun, a lot of excitement with those because they're a little bit better games. Technology was getting a little bit better in 1982. 1983, I wanted something a little bit different here. We've got some Care Bears. I remember Care Bears. I'm doing a Care Bear share with you by sharing all of these pictures. And I do want to say that my wife's favorite Care Bear is Grumpy. Her favorite dwarf is Grumpy. Oddly enough, I didn't ask her who her favorite Smurf was. So 1983 is showing more and more stuff for G.I. Joe. Now, G.I. Joe is starting to take over and dominate. And this is really what happened in 1983. G.I. Joe was picking up steam, taking over, and it really did dominate. So then G.I. Joe started to dominate from 83 on in. So looking at this, we've got the Sky Striker up top, and then next to that we have the base, which was awesome. I mean, it's open and just kind of interesting, but they still looks like they still carried over the Cobra Command exclusive, so that's cool. I didn't know that was offered for 2 years. And then there's a lot of smaller vehicles, a lot of new characters, and a lot of that fun stuff was going on in there. And then to the right, of course, more and more Joe. Just 2 pages of this, and I think they stuck something else in there at the bottom, but it's pretty awesome. I don't know if anybody remembers Cabbage Patch Kids, but yeah, if you didn't have Cabbage Patch Kid, if you didn't have the signature on the rear end, of course. But this 1983 brought in the Cabbage Patch Kids. Most of mine were like homemade Cabbage Patch Kids. Wait, how old was I in 83? Yeah, anyway. So, looking at this, Return of the Jedi was huge for marketing and toys. And I actually think this movie, they made more stuff. The volume per figure was just massive in this movie. So, we've got Jabba the Hutt, we've got the playset in there, and then they carried over some stuff. And a lot of the stuff was carried over and just given new packaging. And so that's kind of how they did things back in the day. Same exact figure, everything. Just it's got the new movie packaging in it. 1984 video games started getting a little bit better. Atari 2600 and all that stuff. The games started getting a little bit better on those platforms. So 1984, we have more G.I. Joe stuff. Awesome G.I. Joe stuff in 1984. Here we go with the whale and the bridge layer and a lot more just awesome G.I. Joe. This is showing it's dominating. I see a Rattler in there. And so they just keep adding to the ranks. Of course, the Dragonfly, that was already out. Really good stuff. A lot of fun looking through these catalogs. But I got to tell you, that G.I. Joe whale, I didn't appreciate all of those parts that went to it when I had them back in the day. Tracking them down today, it's really hard. 1984, we had more and more and more Star Wars, and yeah, it's kind of hard to see all the stuff going on here, but you can see a few things. You can see the Rancor, you can see the B-Wing on the right, you can see the Imperial Shuttle Tidarium. There's a wing. There's one wing to it. My favorite ship. And then more figures, more and more figures, more waves of figures coming out. TIE Interceptor, you can see the tips out of the bottom. Y-Wing at the bottom. Another Star Wars year. This was the beginning of the end of Star Wars, though. 1984 also brought the superpowers. Yes, Kenner superpowers. Awesome, awesome. 1984. That's the Hall of Justice. All those figures. It's kind of like a flash in the pan, but it's so much fun with the Kenner superpowers. And then down below that, you've got the Secret Wars trying to mimic Kenner at the exact same time, in a way. So, Secret Wars, I had that Secret Wars playset as a kid. I'm sure it was just really cheap. But the thing about it is that it didn't do much. It's kind of cool. It didn't take up very much space, though. So there's some pluses and minuses to it. But yeah, superpowers and Secret Wars. Sadly, 1984, when Transformers came out, I don't see it in any of the catalogs. So Transformers 1984, I just didn't see it. I'm sure it was somewhere. I just couldn't find any. But kept finding more Star Wars. There's some A-Team in there. 1985, the last year we're going to talk about in this. And it brought us some Voltron. Now, Voltron in so many forms. You had the Panache Place, you had the Matchbox, you had big, you had small, you had actual 3.75 inch figures, you had the Castle of Lions, all that stuff hitting in 1985. That's great, or at least in this catalog here. So that's exciting news. It's exciting stuff to see. Also, there's a whole page of Sectars on here. That looks really good. I like that. The giant playset, all the figures. That was another toy line that just didn't last long enough. Here are some GoBots. You got the power suits, you've got the combiner, and all that puzzler and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, Super GoBots up top. You have the command center down below, and then they got all these weird GoBot-ish kind of things, like the gun and binoculars. And that's not the double-barrel shotgun I remember. Finally, 1985, we get to see some Transformers in a catalog. Here we go. So, 1985 brought us, we got Omega Supreme in there, we got the Dinobots, we got some cone heads in there, and of course they are a bit pricier. And the Grimlock down there, the Dinobots were each $13 a piece, which was a lot of money for a Transformer back in the day when you think about the size of them and what was going on, what else you would buy at those price points. But Omega Supreme was $40. That is massively expensive for a toy for one character, one figure in 1985. So that is one of the hang-ups to Transformers back in the day, was the price. Now, I think everything in the catalog was a little bit more pricey, of course, than getting it at, say, Walmart or Gibson's or TG&Y. Of course, on the other page, we've got all these other great figures between the Constructicons, the Insecticons, Jetfire, which is one of my favorites, Optimus Prime, all those great figures on the other page. So much fun back in the day. Hi. So 1985, they were selling Kenner superpowers again. Down at the bottom, you got Inspector Gadget. Inspector Gadget, a whole lot of fun. And that figure, $15. 12-inch figure. They should have capitalized on Inspector Gadget in 1980s, 1983, 4, and 5, but not wait to make a whole Inspector Gadget toy line in 1993. And we've got some G.I. Joe. The 1985 brought in the flag, the USS flag. That thing is awesome. And looking at all of this, there's so much more to it. They have exclusives in there, different color items, and different recolors to make them exclusive. This was a good year for G.I. Joe. The flag was awesome. All of the different vehicles, all of the figures, really great and exciting. Oddly enough, back in 1985, I didn't even know the flag existed, even with these catalogs. 1985 brought more Masters of the Universe. Here it is, more Masters of the Universe. Looking really good. Adding in more play sets, more figures and vehicles, and all that great stuff. And this was when Masters of the Universe started to wind down a bit also. More Star Wars in 1985. Of course, look at that beautiful shuttle right in the middle of the page. I mean, wouldn't you want to buy that? And then on the right, we've got a bunch of other lines in here. Wheeled Warriors and Mask. 1985. Mask. So anyway, let me know what you think about this. Did this bring back any memories for you from back in the day? Do you wish we still had catalogs? Are you happy the way we do our mail order these days? Did it ever bother you that you had to buy several figures at the same time, maybe getting ones you didn't want for a much higher price? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Everybody have a wonderful holiday. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year from the Titanium Hangar.